Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star OS Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 150. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for a weekly recap newsletter 192. Ooh, lots of milestones. Anyways, going to do things a little differently. If you just listened to my last podcast, kind of did a Star OS year in review, which was the first half of 2025. This podcast is going to be the second half of 2025 because Star OS team's on break, and even if there was any other news, I'm going to hold it till the first of the year, so I have something to do on my podcast that first week. So anyway, so that's pretty much what this is going to be, part 2 of the year in review of Star Atlas. But before I get to that, again, if you're interested in any Star Atlas resources, please check out my website at intergalacticherald.com. It's a great place for guides, directories, recaps, and Discord news. Also have a merch store, Intergalactic Gear. Don't have a lot of stuff, just some Star Atlas mugs, but you can check that out. And do want to try to get a community of Star Atlas gamers who aren't joining guilds together. If you're interested in that, please check out intergalacticcoalition.com. So as I mentioned, going to do kind of a year in review of Star Atlas for 2025. This is part 2. So as I mentioned in the first podcast, any dates I mentioned are more related to when they were in my newsletters, because I went through all my old newsletters trying to find highlights. So those aren't necessarily matching up there. But other than that, let's get right into it. We ended June 2025 with announcements of Community Week and other things like that. July started out kind of slow in the sense there wasn't anything. All I could find was basically the end of a HoloSim test. But I believe at the time they were hyping the big Star Atlas community event, which they rebranded as Star Atlas Summer. And that was going to involve many things. So July was pretty much nothing. August was when that kicked off. So they did a number of events that had been traditionally in Community Week, and I think that kind of first week in August was that Community Week. So what they did is basically the Copa, which was the guild presentation. They did have another town hall where they did another UE5 update, and then they did the Joni Awards for Community. The town hall was produced. So, and then they did a whole bunch of Discord activities and things like that with the Discord bot and things like that. And then Star Atlas Summer was going to be a couple more events every 2 weeks. So in kind of mid-August, they had the next one, which was the release of the new HoloSim new season, what they then at that point called Chapter 1, because they had just done a test before. We also got the first announcement of Zinc, which, as I alluded to in the last one, this was kind of, partly a response to the many transaction issues, but it was also, as mentioned at the time, this is a way they could actually grow the product, because the Solana fees were always going to be an issue, and this was a way that they could control the blockchain, lower the fees a lot, but also have another product and another business, and basically run a blockchain with validators and things like that. They also, that Star Atlas Summer event did announce a new website landing page, basically kind of took down the old website, put up a new one, different graphics, email sign up to get a code to join UE5, and that was pretty much it. So then next week, the HoloSim launched. Again, we're referring to it now as Chapter 1. And then 2 weeks later, end of August, we had the third kind of big Star Atlas Summer event. This one, they announced the Starframe, which I remember correctly is some Solana framework development type of things. They also announced some changes to Sage, one of them being a Phantom Starbase, and this was a way that people could keep playing even though all the other Starbases had been already, I think, leveled up to 5. Talked a little more about the next things coming in UE5, and they showed off a new tool, which was a Sage editor suite. And reality, even though it's for Sage, this was really more of a development tool for C4, so you could do a lot of different things like that. I have to admit, I still haven't had a chance to check it out, but it's one of my winter break plans. And again, depending on when you're listening to this, I may have already checked it out. But anyway, so that wrapped up a really interesting and I think great community event. Got a lot of Twitter postings and things like that. So it was definitely a great outreach, updating the community, releases, new announcements, and things like that. And not surprisingly, September then was pretty calm. Again, a lot of things were already done. But in late September, we did get the first mention of something called Project Gallia, which was a part of the UE5 version that had been coming out, and it's been something there, but it was much more focused on Well, not the shooter, not the racing. So it was more of the exploration thing. But anyways, they announced a single-player campaign that they were going to hope to try to develop by the end of the year. Spoiler, it did happen. It is out there. So we got our first kind of look at that and where that would be. And then finally, in late September, they patched Sage, which I don't remember why. And, Holocim infrastructure improvements. Yeah, unfortunately, the Chapter 1 of the Holocim had a lot of infrastructure problems, and it just didn't really work right out of the box for a few weeks until they can do it. So, yeah. And then in early October, they announced they were bringing on some Zinc testers, and this was the first indication that they were kind of on track to where they were hoping to get Zinc out by the end of the year. By the end of the year. I'm sorry, I was thinking there's something in the middle there with the Zinc. The announcement. Again, they were supposed to get it out sooner than that. That's what it was. It was supposed to come out in September, if I remember, but it doesn't matter. Also, then in kind of the middle of October, a new kind of community campaign called Iris Blessing was announced. It allowed, one of the things that they did on the UE5, actually, I totally forgot to put in there. One of the things they added in one of the updates was Ink. It was a resource that could only be found plain UE5, and then that could be actually sold to people who needed it in Sage. I forget. Sorry, didn't put that on there. So anyways, one of the good things to gain XP was now there was these weekends where they would double the XP, and so it actually got a lot of more people involved. Plus, they did start part of this Iris Blessing, another Discord bot where involvement could relate to, I think, raffles that would occur every couple of weeks and things like that. So yeah, another great community engagement mechanism. So late October, on one of the Atlas brews, Jacob, the CTO, did some updates on some of the technology. And I think this was great because I haven't really heard much from him. But again, I think it's just that, there's different roles and different people in those roles. But as a co-founder, it was great to hear him speak. Then early November, we did get some more roadmap updates, and this was kind of where things were kind of coming. I think, if I remember correctly, they kind of said, hey, these aren't the dates, but here's the order. Unfortunately, some of those things didn't actually come by the end of the year. They also mentioned a trip to Switzerland, which, again, spoiler alert, we now know what it was, and it was the final town hall where they mentioned a partnership with Tether. In early November, they did the first alpha launch of the Zinc dashboard. So this was the first chance. It was, again, just testing, but we could actually interact with what would be the way that we could gain experience in Zinc, which was connecting things to a Z profile and then doing different things in Star Atlas, from playing Sage to playing Holocim to other things, playing in UE5. So that was when that was first launched, and it was going to be a six-week test. Mid-November, we got another update on the Project Gallia single-player experience, so we were able to see more. And then kind of in late November, Danny, the CPO, Chief Product Officer, actually published in this Foundation Room kind of how all the products stack together in an infographic. And it was really a great way to see how things were all meshing together and things like that. So we're now reaching end of November, which means we're getting close to the end of the year. So in December, early December, at the Economic Forum, there was a first announcement of what's been called the open market operations. This is some changes to the Star Atlas economy that would involve Star Atlas actually engaging in ship sales and buying ships. So lots of changes there. Again, this is more current stuff, so go a couple podcasts back, you can find more information about that. Then in the middle of December, they did officially launch Zinc. I guess it's called Origin, I think. Yeah, but this was the one where the points count. So that was something they were able to release by the end of the year. And then final point, they did have the final town hall of the year. And as I mentioned, they mentioned a partnership with Tether, which is a stable coin. Showed off the new Holocim Chapter 2, which is slated to come out in January. Again, talk more about the economy and some of the open market operations. Changes went live. A little bit of talking about C4, but the big takeaway was it's not coming out this year. And then the UE5 update came out and some changes there, plus the Gallia single player was released in that. And they did make that UE5 out before they went on break. So that pretty much is, well, that is the end of second part of 2025 and all the different things that came out. As far as thinking about all this in kind of a whole, definitely the start out with summer was the highlight of the second half of the year. Tons of announcements, products, just information. Again, first, great community event, also great keeping people up. Kind of feel like in hindsight, again, it was kind of quiet in the summer, but again, they were kind of leaning up to this. Definitely released some things, but then it kind of went silent again, but kind of building up until this last release of things. So yeah, everything kind of there. So looking at kind of the bigger picture in 2025, actually thinking back to 2024, it was kind of quiet in the summer there. I remember when we did the year in review last year, or year ago for the previous year, I had Beyond the Horizon on the podcast, and he kind of mentioned that same kind of thing. But definitely think, but I think the slowness at different points in the year is more indicative of development. There just can't be that many new things coming out that frequently. I mean, there's just not enough changes. But definitely if we look at each of the products, UE5 had a great cadence, went kind of monthly, then slowed down a little bit. But again, a lot of things happen. Better tournament or better features to enable the tournaments. So people do that. Integration with getting the ink. So now it has a experience you can get and then take a resource and put it into Sage. Sage overall, now that I'm thinking back on the past year, kind of stagnated. But again, I think all the effort was put into C4, which unfortunately didn't come out. But they did make some minor tweaks like the Phantom Star bases and some other things. But yeah, unfortunately with the cost of Solana, I stopped playing at some point, and it sounds like the DOA active user count was, the same, probably decreasing a little bit. C4 didn't come out again, as I think was mentioned at the last town hall of the year. They had originally targeted the summer, it didn't work, and now haven't made it. But as I mentioned in a couple past podcasts, now that C4 and Zinc have been tied at the hip, Zinc has to come out first, and it totally makes sense because Solana fees and transactions, it's going to be much heavier on the blockchain usage. It just makes sense on both of those. I mean, just one can't come out without the other. Zinc is definitely a new, interesting development. We'll have to see how that pans out, but from the idea of more stability on the blockchain, cheaper, I shouldn't say stability, more reliability, stability. It just works because it's less, they have more control over it. Plus the cost factor going down. And then the side benefit is it's another coin you can own. So who knows where that goes with this experience gathering, and then the airdrop, which will come sometime in 2026, their first quarter. Yeah, so Zinc makes sense. Let's see. So UE5, Sage, Holosim. I think it's a great idea. I just didn't play it, so it's not top of mind. But it is unfortunate that the Chapter 1, the launch, had a lot of infrastructure problems, but it sounds like they've addressed those. From what I remember watching other people play and videos, it seemed very addictive, very interesting, showed the potential of how Sage C4, without the blockchain integration, even though it was still doing blockchain stuff. Yeah, it looks like a great product. Definitely the free-to-play is a good thing. So yeah, overall, very interesting. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Yeah, so we'll just have to see what 2026 brings. Zinc should be on the horizon. C4 test should be on the horizon. Holosim should be on the horizon. And that's pretty much, I think, all. Well, C4 is a biggie. I'm sure UE5 will keep getting developed. But yeah, the C4, Sage, browser, economy type game. Oh, and then, of course, we have the changes to the economy with start out with selling and buying chips. Actually, that is one interesting one, doing a little kind of look ahead on 2026. Definitely this is probably the first time that, even though it hasn't been spoken about cash flow and runway and burn rate for a while, definitely feels like these changes, this open market operations, sounds like a key point of that is to sell ships again and get USDC or USDT, whatever, but dollars into the team so they can stop selling tokens as their only revenue source. So it does feel like a little bit 2026 is the year that the team needs to find a funding source, and we'll see if ship sales is the way ahead. But again, overall, the economy strategy sounded good. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. ship prices aren't what they were 4 or 5 years ago. So why not see if people buy it? It's a question of, will they buy it? Because you got to have something to do with that ship. So I think that's probably one thing. Again, Holocim looking forward, season 2 or chapter 2, if they nail down the infrastructure things. It seemed like it was very interesting experience for people who wanted to do that. C4, definitely something I'm looking forward to. As I mentioned before, I'm kind of thinking of going into claim stakes and buildings and stuff like that. UE5 just needs to keep being developed, which it has got a good track record. We'll see if people, so I think that's about it. Again, I guess the hardest part about kind of prognosticating the year ahead is we didn't get a lot at the town hall looking forward. And even though it was forward focused, it sure felt short-term forward focused with Zinc and the economy and Holocim, which there's nothing wrong with that. And again, given the cadence of town halls every 6 months, it sounds like they wanted to release a few more things in the end of the year and just didn't happen, but they're all in the pipeline, all being developed. In fact, they said C4 was pretty much done except for the user interface. So, that's something to say there. And again, needing Zinc as its blockchain, makes perfect sense too. So, so we'll just see how 2026 goes. Again, by the time you listen to this, it'll already be 2026. So hope you had a great New Year celebration, and now we're back to the normal. So anyways, again, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening to this year in review of Star Atlas Part 2. Again, if you want to check out any of my things, please check out my website, intergalacticherald.com, for lots of Star Atlas resources. I have my merch store, intergalacticgear.com, and my Star Atlas community, non-guild, at intergalacticcoalition.com. Other than that, welcome to 2026. Hope it's great for you. This is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Have a great week and year ahead.